Hey there, it's Jake the Ashen Hollow, and whoever you are, wherever you are, and whenever you are, if you're watching this right now, well, I hope you're having a swell day. And if you're not, then I hope it gets much grander. I want to preface this video by saying it will be referencing one of my theories, the Witch of Izalith one in particular, so if you haven't seen the two videos about them, they're on the screen now and you can do that if you're interested. You won't misunderstand this video if you haven't seen them, but it will make more sense. This isn't a continuation of that theory, there are just things inside this one that will correlate with the other. Anyways, let's break this bad boy open. Friede, the mistress of the Painted World and eldest sister of the Sable Church of Londor. But where is she from? Who was she before she took on this form? What drove her to the Painted World? Let's first take a look at some of the things we absolutely know about Friede. We know she is the eldest sister who helped found the Sable Church of Londor. She has a background with them and all that they represent. The ordained dress says, after renouncing everything, Friede discovered a people that she wished to protect and assumed the precise form that they yearned for. So obviously Londor falls under the category of the everything she denounced, so the ties are cut there. The three sisters of the Church of Londor I believe are heavily implied to be Velka's children, which means quite a lot here going under the theory that Velka procured the Dark Soul. If we read the weapon skill on the Onyx Blade, it says, Weapon skill, Elfrieda's Black Flame. Unwreathed blade with black flame born of the similarly hued flame that smolders within her. The black flame is almost undoubtedly humanity, or the Dark Soul, which is the same flame that smolders within Friede. Smoldering basically meaning a slow burning fire with no flame, which is unique considering humanity. We know humans have the Dark Soul burning within them, but when the humanity is gone, it isn't a smolder, instead they go empty and hollow. So it's interesting that the Dark Soul stays smoldering within Friede, at least until we reach the third stage in the boss fight, when the Dark Soul within her smolders no more and erupts. With the idea that Velka is the owner of the Dark Soul, it would make sense for her children to inherit properties from it that regular humans would not. Same goes with Gwyn's children, who have become very powerful. So I think this helps define Friede as Velka's daughter, as well as a pretty good loaf of bread in the basket for Velka being the pygmy. I did it. I bet you never thought I would use the loaf of bread analogy again. But must you continue to underestimate me? In reference to the aforementioned videos about Velka, you know that I believe her to be the Witch of Izalith, which is pretty cool considering all the ties to Izalith I find Freitas to have, so let's explore that next. First, let's read the Floating Chaos Pyromancy. It reads, Pyromancer Dunnel was fascinated by the ceremonial art employed by the clerics of Smoldering Lake. Chaos burns away in the blink of an eye, but was the primordial life born in the bed of chaos and a grievous symbol of Izalith's sin. The Smoldering Lake, for all intents and purposes, is Izalith. Or at least it is Izalith in the sense of the Dark Souls multiverse, time is convoluted, lands converging on one another theme. But it's just less confusing to call the Smoldering Lake Izalith, because it is. Anyways, it's interesting that the clerics there use this ceremonial pyromancy. It being ceremonial quite likely means it was established before control was lost of the Chaos Flame, especially considering that the ceremonial pyromancy mentions the primordial life born in the bed of chaos. What's more is that it is a grievous symbol of Izalith's sin, which I think is huge regarding the identity of the first sin, which I still vote for the whole Izalith fiasco. Even here we see it being mentioned as a tremendous sin. More importantly though, the fact that this ceremonial art that is a symbol of that sin is here in the Painted World, and it's employed by a pyromancer who is wielding the Chaos Blade, which was born from Quelaag's soul. So employing a symbol of your sin as a ceremonial art is so quintessentially what makes Velka, Velka to me. That is a huge reason why I believe she even became the goddess of sin. It's all about that atonement and owning up to your shit, baby, and she displays it. Anyways, this video isn't dedicated to Velka, so we'll press on and you'll just have to forgive my obsession. Either way, if we believe Friede as well as the other sisters of the Sable Church to be Velka's daughters, then they have their ties to Izalith. And now the reason I bring this up is that we know Friede is the eldest, but is she the eldest in general or just the eldest of the three sisters? Now I think she's the eldest as in eldest, and let me point out to you the reasons that brought me to this conclusion. If Friede is Velka's eldest, then she would obviously remember Izalith and what happened. She would also fit perfectly as the single unaccounted for daughter of Chaos that isn't found in the game at all. So from the most obvious and common speculation on the matter, we have Quelaag and the Fair Lady, Quelana and the sister outside the Bed of Chaos, and the two that make up the two orbs of the Bed of Chaos. That's 6. But we won't go into debate of the corpse near Ceaseless Discharge. That's not one of them. The ropes specifically state that they're Quelanas, so moving on. There's one unaccounted for. Perhaps Friede could have fled when Velka did. Perhaps she stayed a bit longer but still managed to escape, but even still didn't manage to escape unscathed. If we look at the texture file from the game of Frieda's face, we can see she has a very large burn on the side of her face. She's also sporting red eyes, but we can see that in the game as well, and red eyes are a demonic trait. We know that Freida took a form that the denizens of the Painted World yearned for, so maybe just barely escaping the erupting chaos flame is what happened to her. She's got the big ass burn that could back that thought up, as well as we know a lot of those affected by the chaos flame were turned into demons, so perhaps Friede was as well, but we only get to see her in the form she assumed. Then there's this cool tidbit I found. Frieda's great scythe says, "A great scythe wielded by Sister Elfriede, with a curved blade thinly coated by Painted World frost that easily breaks the guard of shields." In the painting, the scythe is a symbol of a long-lost home, possibly explaining Elfriede's preference for it. Skill, Elfriede's stance. Conjure a magic-bladed support scythe into the left hand while the great scythe remains in the right, a stance derived from Elfriede's former swordsmanship. So there are actually a couple things we get from this. First is that she acquired the scythe as it is a symbol of a long-lost home. Izalith, possibly being Frieda's home, is certainly long-lost. Heck, we can even see some resemblance to Izalith in the Painted World. The tree vines every which way, even the ones we get to run along. We also see the tree bitches. I don't know if that's their actual name, but they're trees and witches, I think, so I just call them tree bitches. Anyways, those are incredibly symbolic of the creature the Bed of Chaos became, and they're right here in the Painted World alongside all the other occurrences, which to me is too much to ignore. Some people think my theory about Velka being the Witch of Izalith and the Pygmy is crazy, which, trust me, I completely understand how it sounds that way on first glance, but to me, evidence just keeps stacking and stacking. So now let's take into account the Scythe's weapon skill, which allows the player to assume the stance derived from Frieda's former swordsmanship. Nothing too fancy, I guess. Looks pretty badass, why not? But then I remembered something. There was one other being in Dark Souls that shares this weapon stance. Want to take a guess of whom? Capra demons. We know that the demons had a society for some time. They have their own runic-like language, they even have statues of themselves erected. The flame of chaos didn't just immediately erupt when Velka attempted to duplicate her soul. They had control over it for quite some time, I believe, with Ceaseless Discharge being the evidence to that. So it wouldn't be completely unlikely for Friede to have developed this stance from the Capra demons, or even vice versa. Plus the scar on her face could be a memento from when the chaos scorched Izalith along with her face. Then there is the symbolism of Friede convincing Father Ariandel to appease the flame, possibly in a similar manner that her and her sisters attempted to keep the chaos flame appeased. To me, there's just too much there to write off as a maybe or as a coincidence, but that's not all even the icing on the cake. This is. This painting or mural is found in the room where we fight Ariandel and Friede before the second phase. Here we see two Nazgul trying to use snakes to fish out the ring that bastard Frodo threw into the lava of Mount Doom. I'm kidding. We do see two robed figures though, likely female, and what do you fucking know? Is that the gold-hemmed black robes from Izalith? It certainly looks damn near identical to me. Most armors we see in the game we can get for ourselves, and I believe this mural is no exception. Now you could argue that it looks like the prayer set that Lothric wears. It kind of does, but there are two things. One, there is a gold amulet or a gold something draped around the neck which we do not see here, and two, the description of the prayer set states that they were made specifically as Lothric's swaddling clothes, and that is all he ever wore. Anyways, I believe the figure on the left is our Lady Friede. She's brandishing the sword of a once very accomplished swordswoman, and is the one who doesn't care to reveal her face. Whereas the other one, which I think could be the furtive, why she's hiding her face, wink wink, pygmy. But there is a shit ton of symbolism going on in this painting, so I'm going to save that for another video, as I've already gotten off track a million times just trying to talk about Friede. Damn it, Frunsoft. You give me too much shit to dig up. The final thing I want to touch on with Friede being Velka's daughter is that when fighting her in her third phase, I feel like I'm talking about DBZ or some shit. Now when you fight her in her Super Saiyan 3 form, anyways, when she becomes Black Flame Friede, that's a tongue twister in and of itself, you'll notice that she begins to cast black pyromancies. She uses her scythe to do so, but it isn't a catalyst. We can acquire this exact same scythe but are unable to cast pyromancies from it. I think that really showcases the power of the Dark Soul residing within her. She can upon command summon and manipulate these flames without the need of a pyromancy flame or catalyst. So I think that about covers it. Again, if you're one of the people that doesn't like hearing about Velka so much, I am sorry. I can't make her not pop up in the story, but yet she keeps on doing it over and over, and I can't just ignore that. Call it an obsession, call it whatever, but even though skeptical, I know you see the points I make, and more keep coming. It isn't anything that should be wrote off anymore. Velka is the Supreme Lord! Well, maybe not that intense, but for real. She has a much bigger role in this universe than we can know, and if we don't like talking about it, then we're never going to figure it out. And if you don't like me talking about it, then I am sorry, but I'm going to keep uncovering all the clues that I can. But thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and all those other good things. I'll catch you guys next time.